few years ago, I recorded a very short, simplistic video trying to help people understand the choice about whether they should refinance their mortgage or not. And of course, in that video, I said I was doing a simplistic version just to give people a feel for what's going on. But there were a lot of complaints in the comments that I don't know what I'm doing and the answer I gave was wrong. Well, the answer I gave was an approximation, yes, and I said that loudly and clearly, but if there's a demand for people to be able to understand how to do these things more precisely, then I'm happy to do it. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to make your own amortization table. An amortization table is where you track month by month what's happening to your balance and why. And I think there's a lot of value in understanding that. A lot of people who've never seen this, whenever they make their payments, it's a little bit of a mystery about how this happens. And so I want to help bring people some clarity. So consider this video kind of an introduction, but I'm going to be making an amortization table here. Feel free to make it along with me. I will also post links in this video where you can download this amortization table. And I'm going to make two versions. One is going to be in Microsoft Excel. The other is going to be in LibreOffice, because I know not everyone has access to Microsoft Excel, and I know that for a lot of people this would be an expensive thing that you just don't want to buy for this one task. So I'll also link a version to LibreOffice, which is going to end in a .ods file. .ods. That way I'll also include a link in the video where you can download LibreOffice. It's totally free. It's a totally safe program used by lots of people who don't want to spend the money for Microsoft Office. But all the formulas seem to work the same way in LibreOffice. So whether you have Microsoft Excel or if you want to pause the video now and download LibreOffice, and we're using LibreOffice Calc, that's their version of a spreadsheet program in LibreOffice, then please do that so you can follow along. In my opinion, doing is the best way to understanding. So what I've set up here already, and feel free to just download this and use it along with us if you want and kind of see how this is done. And after we're done creating this, we'll use it. We'll run through a few exercises, but I want to do this fairly quickly. So I've already got a few blanks here. So home value. Let's suppose that you were buying a home or you owned a home that was worth, say, $130,000 here. And let me format that with dollar signs just to make it really clear what we're looking at. And suppose that you were going to borrow $100,000 to buy the house and you were putting $30,000 down. And let's just suppose, to make it a nice easy round number, your interest rate was 6%. Now I'm going to calculate the monthly rate, because whenever you use these formulas in Excel or whenever you want to make calculations on your own about your mortgage, you want to know what the monthly interest rate is. And all you do is you take the yearly interest rate, here 6%, and divide it by 12 months. So as a formula, we do equals 6% here, which is in cell B5, divided by 12. And that says 1, and we know that 6 divided by 12 is not 1. The problem is it's rounding it off, so let's fix that. Open up our menu here, and here we can increase or decrease the number of decimal places shown. So now we see that that's actually 0.5, and Excel was rounding it to 1. Let's assume this is a 30-year mortgage, but we're going to make this so that you can change the number of years and it will update all these numbers down here, the amount of interest and how quickly you can pay off your loan and everything. Everything that's in yellow is going to be something that you can change so that you can see what happens. This is going to be a what if sort of calculator here. Let's make sure that if we put in 30 years, it's going to calculate the number of months for us. So let's say equals 30 times, little asterisk, 12, and that tells us it's 360 months. That's something else that we're going to need in these formulas when we're calculating. Now let's get Excel to calculate the payment for us. Now, of course, this payment that Excel calculates is not necessarily going to be the same thing that your bank charges you. because your bank might charge you private mortgage insurance on top of it. They also might charge you property tax each month. A lot of banks want to pay your property tax for you just to make sure that it's being paid. I think it's a convenient thing that the bank does it for me, but not everyone feels that way. So this is just the payment that's going to the bank itself for the mortgage, not the insurance, not the taxes. Let's get Excel to calculate that for us. So equals is how you tell Excel there's going to be a formula coming, and then PMT for payment, open parentheses, and then we tell it the rate. So Excel helps you out these days by telling you what it wants for the formula. So here, rate, and what it wants is that monthly rate. So we can just click up here on the 0.5% under B6. So click, and it fills in B6 for us. Comma, the next thing it wants is the number of periods, and that's how many months. So click on the 360 here, comma, present value. That's how much you owe the bank. So principal, $100,000. And then here are some optional values that we're not going to be needing to use in this case. So we can just hit close parentheses and enter. And this tells us that our payment would be $599.55 per month. And it's in red, and it has parentheses around it. And that's Excel's way of telling us that in its mind, a payment is a negative thing, right? That's money coming out of your account. So we'll have to remember that when we do our calculations. What are we going to do down here? So what I want to do is make this kind of a full featured, and if you have any suggestions about other things you'd like to see, let me know. But we want to track what date we're looking at in the future as we track how we're going to be paying down this mortgage over the next 30 years. And month, here I have the idea that this is just going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. So we can track how far along the 360 months we are. And balance owed, well, that's going to start off here just being the $100,000 at the very beginning. So let me type equals $100,000. Equity owned. Now let's see, what I want to do there is keep track of how much of the house value we actually own at any point in time. And so here at the beginning, it's going to be something like this $130,000, since that's the value of the house. So let me type equals the value of the house, $130,000, minus how much we owe, right? So how much it's worth minus how much we owe the bank. So B3 minus C13. And let's make that a little wider so we can see. So at the beginning here, we own $30,000 because that's how much we put down on the house. Okay, payment amount. That's what we calculated here, $599.55. So we can just say it's equal to that. Now there's something we're going to want to do here for all these values that are going to be staying the same as we go down. This payment's not going to go up or down if we assume that this is a fixed rate loan and that 6% interest rate's not going to change. Here's something that if you're not familiar with Excel might be a little bit weird. What we want to do is hit the F4 key on our keyboard, and that puts dollar signs in front of the B and the 10. Here's what that does. Let me hit enter. What that does is if we see this little green box at the bottom right hand side of the cell, if we click that with our left mouse button and drag it down, when you have dollar signs, it says just keep looking at this same place, same place, same place, same place every time. We're going to be changing these things as we go. But, oh, there's one other thing we want to put dollar signs on. Let's edit this cell. We can double click on it. Also, as we drag it down, we always want it to be looking at this home value that's here in cell B3. And we want to be able to update that. Say if we get our house reappraised and its value goes up or down, it's useful to be able to change that so you can keep track of how much of the house value you actually own at any time. We want to keep this B3 the same as we fill these down and do different calculations. So we're going to select the B3 and also hit F4 to put those dollar signs in. But the C13, this value right next to it, the balance owed, that's going to be decreasing as we pay this loan off. So we want that to change. Let me show you what I mean. Let's drag this formula down. What it's doing is it's always looking at B3. The dollar signs say don't change that. But notice how in this formula it's looking one cell to the left in C13. When we go down, it's looking one cell to the left, C14. Without dollar signs, it's going to change as we drag down. It's going to look one cell to the left, C15, C16, etc. If you want to learn more about Excel and how this works, we'll do that at a later time. Let's just accept this and move on. We're going to fix this formula as we update the amount we owe down here. Now, date, in case we want to look at future dates and see what's going on and not just what month number it is, let's type equals, and then this April-20, and that fills that in. Now, what I want Excel to do, or LibreOffice will do the same thing, is down here I want to change this to May 20, and then 1 month in the future every time. And here's the little formula to do that in LibreOffice or Excel. Equals eDate, and then click the April 20th right above it, comma 1. Now this comma 1 says add 1 month. Now what could happen to you sometimes in Excel is it might just give you what looks like a random number here instead of May-20. If it does that, just click on the April 20, come up here to the Format Painter button, and then click on the random number, and that'll tell it to format the date in the same way. So here's what's going to happen every month, and this is the important part of doing this yourself if you're interested. At the beginning of the month, we owe the bank $100,000. We're going to be paying them $600, $599.55. Here, this is an optional extra payment you might want to make in some months to pay down that principal more quickly. And now we want to know how much of that payment goes to interest and how much of that payment goes toward principal. So let's add a column here for total payment. And let's suppose 1 month we wanted to pay an extra $100 toward our principal. Then what we want the total payment here to be is the $599.55 and the 100 combined. But since this is a negative number, let's subtract the 100 from it to make it a bigger payment, a bigger negative number. So we do equals $599.55 minus 100. And let's see, this should be $699.55, right? So we've voluntarily increased our payment so that we can pay this down a little quicker. Now let's delete that for now. We'll come back and we'll play around with that. What we want to know is how much of this payment goes toward interest in a given month. Here's the way to calculate your interest in a particular month. It's going to be equals, since we're doing a formula, the balance owed, $100,000, times that monthly interest rate, 0.5%. Now, since in this calculation we want it to always look at this place in the spreadsheet, B6, to find that 0.5, let's put the dollar signs on it. Hit F4, or you can type the dollar sign before the B and the 6 manually if you want. So here's what's shocking to a lot of people when they start looking at their statements for their mortgage, especially in the beginning. Most of your payment, almost all your payment goes toward paying interest. As you get further into your loan, more and more and more of it will go towards paying down the principal. So here's what we want to do is say, well, how much of the $599.55, or however much we're paying in a given month, goes towards paying down the actual balance owed to the bank? It's going to be equals how much the payment is, and then we could just add plus this 500, and that 99.55 says, well, that's the amount we're paying that goes towards paying down the balance we owe the bank. And so look what happens if we make an extra payment of $100 right here. That goes up to $199.55. when you make that little extra payment, 100% of that extra payment, you own it because it's paying down the balance, right? How much do we owe the bank now? Well, at the beginning of the month, we owed $100,000. We paid $99.55 of the balance off by making our payment. And then at the end of the month, we're going to owe equals what we owed at the beginning plus this negative $99.55, right? Drag that a little bigger. So now we owe $99,900.45. Now we've done all the hard parts. Now we just want to drag these formulas down to fill in for 360 months. And if we've done everything right in 360 months, we should see that our end of month balance is 0. So let's start dragging these down. First, let's drag down these months until we get down to 360, and that'll tell us when our 30 years is up. All right, there we go. Now let's go back up to the top. We can hit Control Home. We ought to be able to just, again, look at that little tiny green box. We call that the fill handle. Just double click on that. And that should automatically fill down for 30 years worth of months and years. So to the year 2050. Sounds like a long time in the future, doesn't it? Okay, we have one more formula that we need to handle before we start filling things down. We need to figure out how can we calculate the balance owed at the beginning of the second month. Well, that's going to be what we calculated here. The end month balance of the first month is going to be the same thing here. So all we want to do is say equals. And then this is J13 in my workbook. Hit enter. And let's just fill everything down. Fill it down. Fill this down. Fill this down. And if we've done everything right, again, here's the sure way to check. Go all the way down to the end, to the 360th month, and see if you owe 0 at the end. Yes. Perfect. So what else can we do with this? The easiest thing to do with what we've got so far is to ask yourself, okay, how much faster could I pay off this mortgage if I made just a little extra payment every month? So my payment is $599.55. Again, in reality, you're probably also going to have to pay some taxes, but that's not really going to the bank. That's something that you have to pay for the pleasure of owning a house. But what if you put an extra $100 per month? And we did that every month. How much faster could we pay off this house? Let's go down until we see 0. Looks like we would pay it off at around the 252nd month. So instead of it being in the year 2050, it'd be the year 2041. We'd be paying it off 9 years earlier by making a $100 extra payment every month. What if we wanted to convert this even sooner? What if it was $150 a month? Click this cell, click that little fill handle. It'll automatically copy it down. So instead of taking 21 years, let's see, it looks like it would take about 18 years, right? So this is a good way to see, should I pay extra toward my mortgage? Now, when you make extra payments like this, make sure to ask your bank or your credit union the proper way to make sure that that extra payment is going to pay down your principal and it is not going to pay down just future interest. If a bank credits future interest with extra payments you make, that's kind of a scummy thing to do. So some banks have a special form or a special way you have to make extra payments to where it'll actually go to reducing the balance that you owe. Some other banks, it's automatic. You pay extra, they automatically do the right thing. But not all banks do the right thing. Oh, also you can see what would happen, right? We can always change this 6%. What if we refinance to 3%? We could see what happens to our payment amount. We can see what happens to how quickly we pay everything down. But since our payment goes down, we're still going to pay it off in 30 years. Unless we still added a $150 payment, right? And then you can see the difference. Another cool thing is you can see how, as your interest rate changes, how the amount of money that goes toward interest and principal changes, right? So I'm going to end this video here because it's already quite long. I want to hear your questions and your feedback. What else would you like me to do? So I'm thinking in the next video about making an addition here, and maybe on the right side of this spreadsheet, adding kind of a what if we refinanced. And maybe we could put a box in there for the total amount of fees and closing costs associated with the refinance and the new interest rate you were thinking about refinancing to, and then maybe figuring out a way to do a break-even date. How long will it take, given the fact that maybe you're paying $5,000 in fees and points and other things to refinance? How long would it take to make that money back in both reduced payments and increased rate of being able to pay down your principal? And we could go through some different scenarios like that. If you're interested in something like that, please give me some feedback in the comment section below. Otherwise, this is Dr. Berkey signing out, and I'll be happy to try to help you with any questions that you have. Thank you very much. Good luck out there.